Like any red-blooded American growing up in the 80s or 90s, I watched The Price is Right when I was homesick from school. And even to this day, I cannot believe how generous those prizes were on that show. And likewise, right now we're looking at how wildly generous King Artaxerxes was to Ezra and the returning exiles with the letter he wrote to them in Ezra chapter 7. We started on it yesterday. We're going to finish that letter today. I'm going to have Jeff play some music and we'll get after it. Verse 18, you and your brother Jews may then do whatever seems best with the rest of the silver and gold in accordance with the will of your God. Deliver to the God of Jerusalem all the articles entrusted to you for worship in the temple of your God, and anything else needed for the temple of your God that you may have occasion to supply, you may provide from the royal treasury. This is unheard of blessing. The doors just keep sliding open, and the prize here just keeps getting better to the point of insane opulence beyond even what 10-year-old me watching The Price is Right on a sick day could possibly imagine. Verse 21, now I, King Artaxerxes, order all the treasurers of Trans-Euphrates, that's the satrapy, the province that Jerusalem is within, to provide with diligence whatever Ezra the priest, a teacher of the law of the God of heaven, may ask of you. Up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of olive oil, and salt without limit. A lot of times we go and look at the measurements and the units. We're just going to kind of roll past this and be like, so a lot. Whatever the God of heaven has prescribed, let it be done with diligence for the temple of the God of heaven. Why should there be wrath against the realm of the king and of his sons? Aha! There we go. I super respect and appreciate the honesty on the part of Artaxerxes here to say, if your God's real, I don't want him to be mad at me. Why should that happen? Let's make sure that we pay him proper honor, or what he imagines to be proper honor. In reality, the God of all things demands exclusive worship clearly throughout the Bible and everywhere. And if he really is the God of all things, it makes perfect sense. Nothing would actually make more sense. But hey, Artaxerxes doesn't know that. He just gets part of the deal here. He only a little bit understands, and that seems to be enough. I mean, this is an imperfect set of motives and imperfect execution, and yet you don't see anybody throwing a fit and be like, no, unless you believe it all the way and all the things, and unless you sign off on our doctrinal statement right here that I, Ezra the priest, have put together, we're not taking that money. We're not working with you. Nope. There's a certain shrewdness here in response to this letter that causes them to be like, great, good enough. Let's do it. Let's roll. And they take advantage of the gigantic mountain of prizes being offered them. You're also to know that you have no authority to impose taxes, tribute, or duty on any of the priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, temple servants, or other workers at the house of God. Are you kidding me? He just gave tax exemption for life to everybody who works in the temple, which, wow. That is rad. And you, Ezra, in accordance with the wisdom of your God, which you possess, appoint magistrates and judges to administer justice to all the people of Trans-Euphrates, all who know the laws of your God, and you are to teach any who do not know them. Whoever does not obey the law of your God and the law of the king must surely be punished by death, banishment, confiscation of property, or imprisonment. Okay, quick note there at the end. It sounds a lot like the tone of his grandpa, Darius, who wrote that letter a couple chapters earlier. That's really, really nice and has a lot of prizes and doors sliding open to reveal cooler prizes as well. But then at the end, he's like, and if anybody doesn't go along with what I wrote here, let's take a beam out of their house and just run them right through with it, just from the back end, maybe like right out the top, and we'll just impale them. It really kind of puts a dark cloud over the tenor of an otherwise very positive letter. Artaxerxes apparently writes in a similar style to his granddad in that regard. But let's just forget the part about death and banishment and confiscation and getting run through and all of that kind of business. Did you catch the last prize that was revealed here as this other door slides open at the end to absolutely shock the contestant? And I imagine the contestants now putting the hands on the side of their mouth and they're getting all sweaty and they're jumping up and down and looking at their family that's out there in the crowd and fanning themselves like, this is insane. So first of all, we get to go make the trip. Second, we get to build a people group that is different from the main people group inside the boundaries of the main people group. Then on top of that, we get a whole bunch of gold to go and do it with, and we're authorized to do all these sacrifices. We have the blessing of the king to make the sacrificial system really hum. And on top of that, we get additional resources to just use for whatever we want beyond taking care of the temple. And on top of that, we get lifetime tax exemption. The sweating and the hopping is getting more intense. And on top of that, we basically get self-rule. Did you catch that in that last paragraph? Because that's what he's saying, right? You get self-rule. You go use the sensibilities of your law, which they believe and I believe is the law of God revealed in the Old Testament, and govern yourselves with that. You get to be a sub-state within the state where your laws and your customs are binding. Go ahead, Ezra. Teach the people what that is. Teach them to obey it and enforce it. You have a tremendous degree, a shocking degree, by ancient world standards, of self-determination and self-rule. Go get them, champ. Here's a bunch of money, too. Bye-bye now. And in the same way, no, not in the same way. It's so much more than in the same way, but kind of in the same way that kid me would watch The Price is Right and doors keep opening and prizes keep piling up. I just couldn't believe that there was that much wealth in the world, let alone to be given to Darlene, who's dressed up like a clown, and her husband Steve, who's in the crowd cheering her on, who drove here from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, just to be on this show. I mean, the unbelievable wealth and prizes they're receiving. In the same way that blew my mind as a kid, this is just totally next level and blowing the mind of everybody who would have read this in the original audience. Are you kidding? The host of the country just gave us all of that and just kept on revealing prizes. And he kind of knows stuff about what we do. Like, does he pay attention to us? Does he know us? Does he know about our religion? He seems to know what it takes. He seems to know the officers within our religion. And then did he just more or less give us our freedom as much as we are able to understand freedom? What is happening here? And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's no argument. There's no sense of, well, we're not taking that from you, you dirty Gentile dog. No, there's a shrewdness in accepting it. Now we come out of that letter in verse 27 at the end of Ezra chapter 7 here, and it just says, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of our fathers, who has put it into the king's heart to bring honor to the house of the Lord in Jerusalem in this way, and who has extended his good favor to me before the king and his advisors and all the king's powerful officials, because the hand of the Lord my God was on me. I took courage and gathered leading men from Israel to go up with me." And the attentive reader, no doubt, would have caught that phrase, go up. That's a nod all the way back to Cyrus. Remember, 2 Chronicles ends with those two words. You get the decree of Cyrus, and it says, "Any one of his people among you, may the Lord his God be with him, and let him go up." That's how the book ends. And then we turn the page to the beginning of Ezra, and we get that same go up language. In verse 3, "Any one of his people among you, may his God be with him, and let him go up." And then it rounds it out to Jerusalem and Judah and build the temple of the Lord. And so we're seeing a lot of things at work here. Theological themes and through lines are coming into focus as we get here toward the end of Ezra, but also historical themes. These Achaemenid kings, because of the way Darius wrested power away from the direct descendants of Cyrus, they were forever beholden to all the decrees that came before them. And because of what Darius carved in the mountain at Behustan, the instructions to future kings to never deviate from what your predecessors did, to do so is to undercut your own authority as king. It is to undercut the office. Big time paraphrasing there is mine, but it's true. That's what Darius was trying to pass down, written in stone on the side of a mountain, Mount Rushmore style, to future generations. And apparently Xerxes and Artaxerxes, these future generations, listened, and they were eager not just to imitate the commands and the impulses and the attitudes of their predecessors on the throne, but even to imitate exactly their language. And clearly Ezra, who may have even written 1st and 2nd Chronicles and the book of Ezra as well, clearly Ezra, or whoever wrote this, is imitating that impulse of continuity from Artaxerxes toward his predecessors. Whoever wrote Ezra is imitating that impulse toward continuity with the theological language of go up, go up, go up. The idea being, come on, Jewish people, come on, exiles, let's go and get this task done. This is what God is putting in front of us. God is opening these doors. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And maybe what he's feeling here is, even if you're not willing to make the trip, kick in on the trip, rebuild this thing. This is our future. This is the redemptive plan. This is our chance. And so in a lot of ways, I mean, come on, what's the theme phrase of the last 8 chapters of the Bible we've been looking at? It's got to be go up, right? And so I got to imagine that for the original audience, this is about as great a part of the Bible as anything that they've read up to this point. I understand they didn't call it the Bible at that time. You know what I mean? Just to see that God has continually moved the hearts of these kings. This is a new empire. This is a new time. God said he was going to raise up this empire for the purposes of fulfilling his promises and raising back up and rebuilding his people for the long haul. And guys, it keeps happening. This is amazing. And it's spelled out explicitly by Cyrus, explicitly by Darius, explicitly by Artaxerxes, and fumblingly by Xerxes in the book of Esther and in a couple of nooks and crannies here in the book of Ezra. So then what we're going to see next in chapter 8, and we're not going to spend much time on chapter 8 at all, is the go up part. It's an account of what happens on the journey with Ezra and the people he raised up to go and finish the task of rebuilding the people, which is, of course, one of the 2 big rebuilding projects of this whole thing. All right, I think that's 2 days well spent. There you have it. Artaxerxes has piled the prizes high, and Ezra is on his way to take him up on his generosity. More on all of this next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.